Insightful analysis on the Brentford and Manchester United 1-1 draw. United continue to disappoint and fall short on the last Champions League spot this season. They don't control the game in possession or out of it, they're neither. And so they're always relying on the opposition to miss their opportunities or to not create a high volume of really high-quality ones. And for them to take their own chances, it's not sustainable. But I think yesterday, just the manner in which they were so outplayed, I think Thomas Frank called it the most one-sided game he's ever seen, most one-sided draw. And I'd agree because Brentford were just all over them every time they broke. And by the way, the ease in which Manchester United's press is broken and teams can just bypass everything and get at them is shocking. But yeah, they did not deserve anything from that game. Very, very fortunate to get that point. Jamie Redknapp said afterwards that he felt that Manchester United made Brentford look like Real Madrid to get away with the draw. Absolutely, they got away with it. I mean, Melissa's absolutely right. It's not sustainable to allow another team to have so much of the possession. This is the 6th time in the last 7 Premier League games that they've faced 20 or more shots on goal. You're talking about Manchester United, you're talking about firepower. Well, listen, first and foremost, you're talking about a team that has cost hundreds of millions to put together. You're talking about a team that's trying to compete for a Champions League place that actually they don't deserve. And when you look at Spurs, you look at Aston Villa, you see players that are buying into what their manager wants. Man United are still a moment's team. They'll give you a good moment and they'll have people saying, we've done it on the show before. You know, have they turned a corner? I remember you being shocked the last time you asked me that. And I said no, because they are just a team you just can't trust. And I think for me, nothing about yesterday surprised me because I just think that defensively, Man United are always all over the place. When you look at their run on paper, it looks impressive. But then you look at the sides that they've scraped past in many cases, they're teams in the bottom half of the table. Liverpool must look at yesterday and think, how on earth did we lose to this Manchester United team? What I would say is that we were treated to an absolute belter of a game in the FA Cup, so they've got it in their locker to pull out the bag. That again though, when you look at the game, when you analyse it, that's again them utilising their moments, relying on the opposition to miss their opportunities. And that was amazing, an emotional win. Old Trafford was, I haven't seen the stadium like that in a very long time. The club needed that, the players needed that. But if you can't build anything off it, and they can't build anything off it because there's nothing to work towards, this approach that they use, like I said, it allows the opposition basically to come at you. And Brentford had 85 touches in United's box. Brentford had won 2 of the previous 18 games. They had their entire back 4 missing, and they were allowed to dominate United. They were brilliant, but they're allowed to be brilliant because United don't interrupt and interfere with the opposition's build-up play. We're talking about them defensively, but also in the final third, they don't create enough anything of high quality. They talk about restricting the opposition to high-quality chances, but they don't create them themselves. The performance itself, so if we can have that in the FA Cup, that's kind of like a manager saving performance from the players. And then yesterday's performance, Jamie Redknapp was also saying that that's a performance that gets a manager the sack. It feels like they're, I don't want to go back to what we were talking about before, the fact that they feel like they don't know what they're doing on the pitch because they've been accused of that. What is happening on that pitch? Why are they putting in performances like that against Liverpool and then performances like that against Brentford? It's hard to be able to tell. I mean, listen, like every other team, they do have their injuries. And they do have issues that disrupt the side. Mel knows more than me about the ways and the setbacks that Ten Hag has had to contend with throughout the season, but there is no substitute for will and desire, the kind of thing that you see at teams lower in the Premier League than Manchester United. Both teams had to win yesterday for very different reasons. Are still fighting for their lives. They cannot take their place in the Premier League for granted, and yet they had 31 attempts on goal. They hit the woodwork 4 times and you didn't really see any kind of cohesion from the Manchester United side that suggested they had the same kind of appetite. And this isn't just coming onto the show knocking Manchester United, because when they do well, you have to recognise that. But the fact is that when you look at the expenditure, when you look at the quality, the individual quality they have, and when you look at the lesser quality and the lesser resources available to other teams in and around them, you have to look at whether or not the players collectively are buying into what the manager wants, in the same way that the Villa players are doing for Unai Emery and the Spurs players are doing for Ange Postecoglou. What are the papers saying today? Well, I'm going to take you to the Observer, because Jonathan Wilson is scathing the headline self-explanatory. Yes, it did equalise a couple of minutes after Manchester United did, but it gave Brentford the least they deserved. They gave you numbers a second ago. And I love Jonathan's intro because he says it doesn't matter what they did 2 weeks ago in the game against Liverpool. This right here is the modern Manchester United, and they are dismal. The trouble with the United, Jonathan says, is that while they've had decent performances, they are rarely followed by anything approaching a consistent run. And he's right. Liverpool, as I said before, they'll be gutted that this Man United, that looked like a rabbit in headlights, they lost to them. Because had this Man United played against Liverpool the other day, Liverpool would have taken them apart. Just finally on this, Erik ten Hag, will he be in charge next season, do you think? Manchester United say that no decision has been made and that they are planning for him in terms of the summer tour, in terms of recruitment. Ultimately, it will be decided by results and performances. United have a few issues in terms of what they can do financially. The compensation to let him go would be very high. Then you have to think about hiring somebody you might need to pay compensation there if they're not out of work. Is there a standout candidate that you look at and you think, okay, this is what United are missing and this is who they can get? Remember, we have such a shift in the landscape this summer with so many big clubs and national teams going to be in the market for a manager. Can United compete with them? One of the big question marks against Erik ten Hag has always been his charisma. But you look at some of the options on the market and you're thinking, well, they're not really a magnetic personality. So it's very difficult for United because they also accept that he's not been working with a stable structure. He's not been working with a world-class operation and he's had a lot to deal with, not just in terms of injuries, but the off-field issues. And we're speaking about the players and is there buy-in? Can't forget that a few months ago there was a PR campaign against him from some in the dressing room to get him the sack. So not ideal conditions to be dealing with, but no matter what we say and what context we give, the way Manchester United are playing on the pitch is just not good enough.